Airbus spent 25 billion euros building the A380 and needed to sell 600 to break even. It sold 251, then shut the line in 2021. Now in 2026, Emirates just bought 29 of them outright, Lufthansa dragged its fleet out of storage, and British Airways is retrofitting all 12 of theirs. Boeing noticed, and it's building something. Those airlines aren't being sentimental. They're solving a problem nobody else can solve for them. The A380 was never really about carrying more people. It was built for one specific situation, the slot-constrained mega hub. A handful of airports running at absolute capacity where you physically cannot add another flight. Dubai funnels traffic from 6 continents through one airport. Singapore Changi sits at the crossroads of Asia. London Heathrow is hemmed in by just 2 runways and surrounded by houses. At airports like these, the aircraft stops being an airline's most valuable asset. The slot is the simple right to take off and land at a given time. The maths from there is brutal and simple. A twin-engine jet moves maybe 350 people through one slot. An A380 moves over 500. When British Airways swapped 3 daily Boeing 747s to Los Angeles for 2 A380s, it kept the same capacity, freed up a Heathrow slot worth tens of millions of pounds, and cut daily trip costs by close to 20%. That's the trick. Same runway, access dramatically more revenue. The physics were less forgiving. Maximum takeoff weight around 570 tons. The fuel burn was relentless, and the whole thing only worked if you filled the aircraft to the brim. Step outside the mega hubs, and the logic collapsed entirely. No US carrier ever ordered one. American, Delta, and United all run fragmented networks flying Boeing 787s and A350s directly between cities and skipping congested hubs completely. The A380 only made sense for a tiny club of super hubs, and there weren't enough of them. So Airbus killed it, made it official in 2019, delivered the final aircraft to Emirates in December 2021. Then the problem nobody planned for arrived. Those mega hubs didn't get less crowded. Demand came roaring back harder than anyone predicted. And hundreds of the world's busiest routes are now heading toward losing the one aircraft that solved them with nothing in production to take its place. That's the gap Boeing is aiming at. The plan is a stretched version of the 777X, provisionally called the 777-10. Take the 777-9, which is already the largest twin-engine aircraft ever built at around 426 seats, and extend the fuselage by roughly 16 feet. That pushes seating toward 450 and past 500 in a denser layout. Everything else stays. Same GE9X engines. Same folding wingtips, which matter enormously here because they let a wing this large fold down to fit standard airport gates the A380 could never use. Same commonality with the existing 777X family, meaning airlines, pilots, and mechanics aren't starting from scratch. That last point is why Boeing has the strongest position of anyone. It has the launch customer, it has the engines, and it has the lowest engineering leap of any option on the table. Boeing mostly just has to finish a job it already started. Emirates is the customer driving this. It built its entire Dubai operation around enormous aircraft, and when Airbus shut the A380 line, Emirates was left with a fleet of super jumbos and no replacement large enough. Its executives have been openly pushing Boeing to build something bigger. And at the Dubai Air Show in November, 2025 Emirates publicly backed a Boeing feasibility study for the stretch while ordering another 65 777-9s. Airbus has an answer too, sort of. A stretched A350, sometimes called the A350-2000, which would push capacity toward 400 to 440 seats. But Airbus has never launched it, and there's a strategic reason. It would rather let Boeing take the risk first and see whether the orders are actually real. It's an insurance policy, not a plan. And an A380neo, an updated version of the original, for all the romance around it, that idea has sat in a drawer for almost a decade. No balance sheet will sign it off. Here's what makes replacing the A380 harder than just matching the seat count. The A380 changed what an airliner was allowed to feel like. For decades, every aircraft was a variation on one theme. A single tube cram in as many seats as the rules allowed done. The A380 took that tube and doubled it. 2 full decks, a cabin so vast that designers weren't fighting for inches anymore. They were handed volume. And the moment they had it, things got interesting. Singapore Airlines flew it first in 2007 with enclosed first-class suites and real beds. Emirates put a bar and showers on board. Etihad built the Residence, a 3-room apartment in the sky with a butler. Almost nobody could actually buy the Residence, and that was never the point. For the first decade of Emirates A380s, most passengers were nowhere near that shower or that bar. They were flying on 777s in perfectly ordinary seats, while competitors offered nicer cabins. It didn't matter. The A380 worked as a billboard. The existence of the shower made the whole airline feel like the most glamorous way to fly, and that feeling sold economy seats across the entire fleet. That's the part a spreadsheet can't capture and the part a replacement has to recreate. The physics make it genuinely hard. To feed just 2 shared shower spas serving 14 passengers, Emirates hauls around 500 extra kilograms of water on every A380 flight. Roughly 25% more water than it would otherwise carry, pumped up 2 decks from a tank near the wing. That's dead weight carried the entire journey. Fine on an aircraft built around volume, much harder on a twin-engine jet built around efficiency. So the flagship features get scaled rather than copied. A full horseshoe bar needs a deck the 777 doesn't have, but Emirates' own 777X teaser has shown a lounge-style space tucked into the cabin. Showers might survive in a reduced form, perhaps only for the front 2 suites rather than all of first class. Emirates isn't giving up on the concept. Tim Clark confirmed at an industry summit this April that the airline is working on en-suite bathrooms in first-class, potentially fully private lavatories with a shower built into the suite itself. Airbus has already shown an A350 first-class concept with a centered double bed and its own private restroom. There's one more constraint working against all of this: staffing. Premium products need crew to feel premium, and airlines have spent the last decade cutting crew rather than adding them. JetBlue's transatlantic A321s originally flew with 5 cabin crew and now fly with 4, which forces safety limitations that require suite doors to be locked open. A flagship product quietly hollowed out by one missing crew member. The opposite extreme exists too. Etihad's A321LR first class runs 1 crew member for every 2 passengers with a full caviar service out of a narrow body galley. Which brings this back to the actual question. What replaces the A380? The 777-10 is the most likely answer because it needs the least invention and has the customer already asking for it. Boeing hasn't officially launched it. The company is still counting whether enough airlines would buy an aircraft that only makes sense at a handful of airports, which is precisely the trap that killed the A380 in the first place. Only a small number of places on Earth genuinely need a 500-seat aircraft. Everywhere else, airlines have learned to prefer flexibility over size, and nobody wants to be stuck with a tiny, expensive niche fleet again. But at Heathrow, at Dubai, at Changi, the runways are still full, and nobody is building new ones. You can't add another flight. You can only make each one bigger. That problem never went away when the A380 died. It just lost the only aircraft that ever solved it.